queen of Solaris, stood frozen as her son, the last heir of a star-born dynasty, buried his glowing face into the chest of a human man. Around them, advisors gasped, guards shifted, and the chamber itself seemed to hold its breath. The child's words shattered every expectation. "My Earth, Dad would never leave me." It wasn't a rebellion. It was a truth, spoken with the quiet, unshakable certainty only a child could possess. Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from, and if stories like this hit you right in the heart, go ahead and subscribe. Tomorrow's chapter? Even more heartbreaking than this one. The stars outside the viewport hung still, like old promises. Somewhere beyond them, Earth spun unnoticed, irrelevant to the affairs of empires. Inside the ship, vast and silent like a mausoleum carved from light, one man waited in a chair, too sleek, too alien for his frame. His name was Cole Rennick, former mechanic, former husband, and now perhaps something stranger. He hadn't meant to end up here. The summons had come without warning, an envoy cloaked in mist, a voice that crackled through his walls like static, speaking of a child who remembered his scent. Cole thought it was a joke, some deep space scam, but they'd shown him a photograph. A boy, maybe 8 or 9, violet-skinned, eyes too large and glowing faintly, clutching a ragged, stuffed shuttle that looked eerily like one Cole used to build. "He asks for you," the envoy had said, by name. Now he sat in a throne room without warmth. Blue light pulsed through the crystal walls like breath in a giant's lungs. Columns etched with languages Cole couldn't read stretched toward a ceiling too high to see. Everything was symmetrical. Too symmetrical. The kind of perfection that made a man feel like an infection. The doors opened with no sound. Cole stood, unsure if he should. The child entered first. He ran, not walked, ran toward the man with a joy that cracked like thunder through the chamber's silence, his arms wrapped tight around Cole's waist, fingers digging in like he'd been waiting forever to be held again. "You came," the boy whispered. "You really came." Cole blinked. His arms moved on instinct, circling the small frame that pulsed faint heat through purple skin. "Hey there, kiddo," he murmured. "Guess I did." Behind the child, 3 figures followed, tall, adorned, lethal in posture. And then, the queen. She was impossible to miss. Every movement shimmered. Her body radiated the cold confidence of rule, her silver hair trailing like mist behind her. Her eyes were stars gone blue with time. Her expression was unreadable, but Cole knew judgment when he saw it. She did not speak to him first. She spoke to the child. "Zyren," she said, voice like frost cracking over fire. "Release him." The boy's grip only tightened. "He's my father," Zyren said softly, without a hint of rebellion. Just fact. A murmur rippled through the chamber, guards shifting, advisors adjusting robes, the air stiffening with protocol. But Cole didn't move. The boy in his arms trembled now, barely, but enough. Enough for a man to understand what wasn't being said. The queen's eyes met his. "You are not his blood," she said. Cole looked down at Zyren, then back up. "Don't need to be," he said. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of things no one had the courage to say yet. But the boy already had. The boy's name was Zyren, but in court they called him Heir of Flame. It was tradition, not affection. Titles carried more weight than names in the House of Solaris, where lineage outshined loyalty and emotions were things to be trained, not trusted. Zyren had always struggled with that, even before Cole. He was born beneath a tri-moon eclipse, wrapped in silks woven from starlight, announced with great ceremony by the royal chronolords. The galaxy celebrated his birth. The queen did not cry. No one noticed, or if they did, no one mentioned it. Love in the palace was efficient, structured, a plan laid out in centuries, not lullabies. Zyren had no brothers, no sisters, no father. Officially, the queen had chosen to bear a child through a genetic matrix optimized for intellect, memory, resilience. No partner necessary. A sovereign does not dilute her bloodline. And yet, something had gone awry. From the beginning, Zyren was too warm, too curious, too affectionate. He would not sit in silence during galactic sermons. He reached for the hands of guards as if seeking comfort. He wept when palace drones malfunctioned and had to be dismantled. Once, at a royal banquet, he offered his dessert to a servant. The scandal of it echoed for days. The queen tried discipline, tutors, recalibration chambers. He didn't resist, he simply didn't change. His empathy ran deeper than protocol could suppress, and the more the court demanded he become less, the more he clung to whatever traces of more he could find. That was when he found the archive recordings, Earth broadcasts, old ship logs, and one, in particular buried deep, tagged as irrelevant, nearly corrupted, a maintenance log from a crashed transport, where a man with oil-stained hands held a camera and told bedtime stories to pass the time. The man laughed easily, cursed too much, but his voice, it felt like safety. Zyrene watched it every night. He memorized the way the man scratched his beard, the way he tilted his head when listening, the way he ended each story with, "Sleep tight, kiddo. I'm right here." The boy had never heard someone say that to him. Eventually, Zyrene asked the archive keeper who the man was. The keeper, amused, ran a trace. "Cole Rennick," he said. "Earth-born, unremarkable, probably dead." But Zyrene clung to the name. He whispered it before bed, drew it into the condensation on the chamber walls. In secret, he requested a DNA match. It came back negative. Still, he believed, "I don't care if he's not my blood." Zyrene had told his AI companion one night, "He sounds like someone who would stay." And then, with the relentless precision of royal machinery, the request was filed, the summons sent, the man found. And now Zyrene stood in the court that never held him, in the arms of the man who did, and he would not bow. Not to titles, not to expectation, not to a crown that never bent down to meet him. The first night they let Cole stay, they gave him a chamber without windows. The bed was too soft, the air too still. Everything hummed with a quiet, clinical perfection that made it impossible to rest. He stared at the ceiling, watching faint pulses of blue light beat like the slowed-down rhythm of a machine's heart. Somewhere beyond the walls, the boy was sleeping, or trying to. A soft knock broke the silence. Not mechanical, not protocol, just a small, hesitant knock. Then the door slid open before Cole could answer. Zyrene stood there barefoot, holding a small blanket and a thin tablet. He didn't speak, just padded across the room, climbed onto the bed beside Cole, and curled up against his side like it was the most natural thing in the universe. Cole blinked. "They let you in here?" Zyrene shrugged. "They don't know yet." Cole chuckled under his breath. "You're gonna get me vaporized." The boy smiled, head resting on Cole's shoulder, the glow of his markings dim and soft. "Tell me a story." "A story?" Cole asked, surprised. "What kind?" Zyrene tilted the tablet up. On its screen was a paused frame, an old Earth cartoon, grainy and half-corrupted. It was a dog in a spacesuit, chasing a bone around Saturn. "Like this," he whispered. "But your voice." Cole stared at the image. Something tightened in his chest. He exhaled slowly. "All right, let me think." And so he told him one. About a clumsy robot who wanted to grow a garden on Mars. The robot didn't know how to plant things, so it tried to water the rocks and feed the Sunday it messed up everything. But it kept trying. And one day, a flower bloomed in the dust, even though no one believed it could. Zyrene listened without blinking. By the time the flower bloomed in the story, the boy's breathing had slowed, not asleep, but close. He reached out, his fingers trailing through the air. Cole looked down. "Are you drawing something?" Zyrene smiled faintly. "Starlight." He traced a pattern above them, his glowing fingers sketching shapes only he could see, lines between invisible points, constellations made from memory instead of maps. "My mother says stars are for rulers," the boy said quietly. "They guide the throne. And what do you think they're for?" Zyrene considered that. "For remembering who you love, even if they're far away." Cole didn't speak. Couldn't. The boy reached out, took his hand, and placed it gently in the space between two stars only he could see. "Now you're in my sky," Zyrene whispered. It was such a simple thing. But in a galaxy where loyalty was traded like currency, And love was a strategic liability. The warmth of a child's hand under alien stars felt more powerful than any weapon. They fell asleep like that, fingers tangled in imagined starlight, rewriting constellations in a room meant for forgetting. The Queen did not knock. Her entrance came like a shift in gravity, silent, absolute, undeniable. The door to Cole's chamber hissed open at dawn, and light from the corridor spilled over them. A man and a boy asleep beneath a blanket of artificial stars. Zyren stirred first. He blinked against the sudden brightness, then sat up, still drowsy. His small hand remained looped loosely around Cole's fingers. When he saw her, he didn't flinch. "Mother," he said softly. Cole woke next. Slowly, like a man dragged up from deep sleep by instinct alone. His body tensed when he saw the figure standing there, tall, wrapped in silver and shadow, her expression carved from stone. He moved to sit up, but Zyren put a hand on his chest. "Stay." The Queen's eyes flicked to that touch. "Guards were stationed outside," she said. "You disobeyed." Zyren's voice didn't waver. "I didn't ask their permission." Her jaw tightened. "You are the heir. Your actions reflect the crown. That reflection is stained when you cling to strangers." "He's not a stranger," Zyren said. "He tells me stories. Stories do not make a father," she replied coldly. Cole exhaled and sat up slowly, cradling Zyren protectively without trying to make a scene. "With respect, Your Majesty, sometimes stories are all we get." Her gaze snapped to him. "You overstep," she said. He didn't deny it. "I'm not trying to steal him from you. I'm just showing up. Seems like someone should." Her silence was not agreement, but it wasn't denial either. Behind her, the hallway was already alive, staff whispering, advisors pacing, security readjusting their grips on ceremonial blades. The Queen, ruler of 1,000 systems, had not slept. Not because of war, but because of this human man, this soft-spoken mechanic from a dying planet who had somehow become the center of her son's galaxy. "You presume much," she said, quieter now. "Do you know what it means to raise a child destined to rule?" Cole shook his head. "Nope," the Queen arched a brow. "But I know what it means to raise one who's scared, who looks for you in every shadow, who just wants someone to remember what they said yesterday and mean it today." Zyren didn't speak. He simply leaned closer to Cole, his little hand resting again over the man's heart. The Queen watched that, watched how the boy calmed, not out of fear, not out of discipline, but because he was safe. "You believe affection is strength," she said finally. "I believe it's the only kind that lasts," Cole replied. The Queen stood there for a long time, unmoving. Then, without warning, she turned and left. No decree, no punishment, just her shadow spilling across the floor as she vanished beyond the threshold. When the door closed behind her, Zyren looked up at Cole. "I think she's scared." Cole nodded. "Good. That means she's listening." The court assembled in silence the next morning, summoned not by trumpet or decree, but by rumor. Whispers passed like static through the spires of Solaris. The prince had spoken the forbidden word. Not treason, not defiance. Something far more destabilizing. Love. Zyren walked beside Cole down the marble causeway toward the central chamber, his small hand wrapped around two of the man's fingers. His ceremonial robes shimmered with planetary insignias, but his steps were those of a child, uneven, unsure. Yet he didn't let go. Eyes followed them. Nobles turned without turning. Ministers stood straighter. No one spoke, but the silence screamed. At the dais, the Queen waited, regal as ever, but paler. Her crown, made of pulsar shards and ancestral bone, pulsed faintly with color, an involuntary reaction to emotional interference. The fact it flickered at all was a scandal in itself. Cole didn't bow. He stood at Zyren's side and nodded once. The Queen addressed no one in particular. "There has been a breach of protocol. A foreign civilian has established unauthorized emotional proximity to the heir." The words landed like stone in a pool. Measured, heavy. Zyren stepped forward. "I invited him," the boy said. "You're a child," one of the advisors snapped, before immediately withering under the Queen's glance. Zyren took another step. You all tell me I'm a prince, that I must lead. So if I am to lead, I ask this court a question." The chamber stilled. He turned, eyes scanning every rank, every shimmering robe, every ceremonial blade. "If something makes you feel safe, if someone chooses you when they don't have to, is that not family?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "I asked the stars once what a father was," Zyren continued, "and they didn't answer. But when I met him, he looked at Cole. He did. With his stories, with his arms, with staying." The queen's fingers curled slightly against her armrest. "And so I ask," Zyren said, voice soft but unshaking, "can I call him my real father, even if he's not my blood?" It was like detonating quiet inside a sacred tomb. The question was too human, too raw, too unarmored. The court wasn't built for it. A senator gasped. A general scoffed. One priest immediately began reciting fragments of lineage doctrine as if to spiritually disinfect the moment. But Cole only stood still, eyes fixed on the boy. He didn't move to comfort him. Didn't need to. Zyren hadn't asked for approval. He'd asked for truth. The queen rose. All eyes turned to her as the hem of her robes whispered against the polished obsidian floor. She moved slowly, deliberately, descending the dais one step at a time. She reached the boy and knelt, something she hadn't done since the day he was born. Her eyes searched his. "You already have," she said. "Not permission. Recognition." Zyren smiled faintly, then leaned forward and whispered, just loud enough for only her to hear, "He would never leave me." Before Cole, before stories, before quiet hands and earthborn lullabies, there was another. The palace rarely spoke of him, not because he had died, but because he had vanished. And silence, in Solaris, was how shame was embalmed. His name was not allowed in the court record anymore. Not since the queen herself had it struck. But Zyren had found pieces, fragments buried in data cores, erased family trees, and a single image locked behind biometric clearance. He had broken into it when he was 6. The man in the file did not look like Cole. Tall, severe, a face like chiseled ice, hands always clasped behind his back. His uniform was a war cloak, edges still wet with conquest. He had been brought into the queen's orbit, not for love, but for alliance. A general, brilliant and merciless. The pairing had been ceremonial, strategic. They did not marry, they signed agreements. And then the child came. At first, the general tolerated Zyren, corrected his posture, scheduled his routines, enforced discipline as if grooming a weapon rather than raising a boy. But something in Zyren had never aligned with that rigidity. He cried. He laughed too loud. He clung to servants when they tried to leave. The general disapproved. "I do not raise liabilities," he once told the queen. She didn't argue, but she didn't stop him either. Zyren remembered a day when he'd made a picture, crudely drawn stars and stick-figure aliens, with himself and his parents holding hands. He showed it to the general, beaming. The man took one look, folded the paper once, then twice, and dropped it into a waste bin. "Royalty does not draw," he said. Zyren had been 4. After that, the boy stopped bringing anyone his drawings, and the general stopped coming altogether. No formal goodbye. No explanations. Just absence, swift, clean, absolute. The queen told the court he had been reassigned, that the union had served its purpose. But Zyren had known even then. He was left, and no one looked for him. No one explained. It was as if the man had been a dream the palace woke up from and decided to forget. Only the boy remembered. And in remembering, he built a private ache, an invisible wound that no tutor could treat, no protocol could bind. That pain had lived quietly in the hollow of his chest for years, until a face on a damaged recording smiled at him from an ancient Earth module and said, "Sleep tight, kiddo, I'm right here." That voice was the opposite of cold. It became a campfire in the vacuum, a thread he held onto until it led him to Cole. And now, standing in the chamber where his biological father once ruled with silence, Zyren chose something different. A man without medals, without genetic claim, but whose warmth never once wavered. And in that choice, the bloodline began to crack, because love, once awakened, demands something of the truth. The Queen of Solaris had not wept in 27 years, not when the war moons fell, Not when the alliance crumbled. Not even when the man she'd chosen, cold and brilliant, walked away without turning back. She ruled with clarity, not sentiment. Her crown, forged from the bones of extinct stars, was not a symbol of affection. It was a weight she wore without complaint. But now, that weight had shifted. She stood alone in the hall of reflection, a chamber sealed from even the highest advisors. No eyes, no audience. Just her and the mirrored walls that bore no mercy. She stared at herself, not the regalia, not the posture, not the monarch. She stared past all that, searching for the woman who had once whispered to her newborn son, "You will never need to cry for what you do not have. I will be enough." She had believed it, but watching Zyren curl into the arms of a human man, a stranger, a mechanic, a relic of a world outside royal blood, had shattered something she couldn't name. Not out of anger, but recognition. Painfully, undeniably so. The boy had smiled in a way he never had with her, and it was not rebellion. That was what haunted her. It was relief. A memory surfaced, uninvited. Zyren was 5. He had made a crown from broken crystal scraps and placed it on her pillow with shaking hands. When she asked what it was, he had said, "So you can rest. I'll be the ruler while you sleep." She hadn't laughed. She had told him, gently but firmly, that crowns were not toys. He had nodded and taken it away. She never saw him play pretend again. The queen closed her eyes now, the memory hitting harder than the political wars she'd weathered. It wasn't cruelty. She had never struck the boy, never raised her voice. But in her silence, in her precision, she had made a kingdom too sharp to cradle anything soft. She had thought it was enough to provide stability, but she had never provided warmth. And then came the human. Cole Rennick, unexceptional by every royal metric. No title, no training, just presence. He showed up again and again, no strategy, no inheritance to protect, just staying. The queen turned from the mirror. Behind her, on the polished floor, the flicker of the crown's reflection fractured slightly, as if the light had bent. She felt the echo of it, a tiny shift in gravity, barely perceptible, but real. A crack, not in her power, in something older, deeper, the belief that control was love. That lineage was enough. She pressed a hand to her chest, unsure of the pressure building there. A warmth, no, an ache, and somewhere deep in the marrow of her reign, the knowledge began to unfurl. She had given her son everything except the space to be held. The tribunal dome was summoned in full for the first time in 3 decades. It was rare for the queen to call upon it. Rarer still for its seats to be filled, not by warlords or foreign ambassadors, but by bloodline witnesses, gene guardians, legacy auditors, custodians of inheritance, bred to detect impurity in the chain of rule. At the heart of the chamber stood Cole, no armor, no advocate, just a jumpsuit freshly pressed, and a small, trembling boy sitting cross-legged behind him. Zyren was not allowed to speak this time. "This is not a criminal trial," the queen had declared. "It is a trial of naming, a test of what makes a father." She had not looked at Cole when she said it, but her voice cracked like frost under flame. A steward stepped forward, holding a long glass rod etched with runes of identification. He passed it over Cole's body. The rod pulsed dim. "No matches, no royal blood," the steward announced. "No genetic tie, no cultural bond, no ceremony recognized by the high houses. He is unconnected." A murmur spread across the tiers like wind through bone. One of the auditors rose, ancient, eyes milky with age. "By what claim does this outsider assert paternity over the heir of flame?" Cole didn't flinch. "I don't." Gasps. "I didn't come here to claim anything," he said. "I came because he asked, and I stayed because I couldn't stand the thought of him asking again and hearing nothing." "You admit you are not his father?" "By blood." Cole nodded. "No. Then what are you?" He looked over his shoulder, toward the boy seated on the floor. Zyren met his gaze, eyes wide but steady. In that moment, something passed between them, ancient and invisible. "I'm the man who listens," Cole said. "I'm the one who tells him stories when his pulse spikes in the night. I'm the one who shows up, not out of duty, but choice. If that's not enough, then maybe you're not asking the right question. The silence that followed was different this time, not disapproval, confusion, curiosity. Zyren stood, hands at his sides. "If I call him father," he said softly, "and I mean it, does it matter what his blood says?" The queen remained silent, her eyes unreadable. Another auditor spoke. "Intent is not inheritance. Legacy is not affection." Zyren turned toward him. "Then maybe legacy should change." It was the kind of heresy that got people exiled, but no one spoke. Because in a galaxy where lineage ruled, where names were passed like weapons, a boy had just stood before history and asked it to evolve. The queen finally stood. She moved toward them not as monarch, but as mother. And when she reached Cole, she didn't dismiss him. She didn't condemn. She turned to the court. "He does not wear our name," she said, "but he has carried what none of you could, my son's trust." And the court had no protocol for that. They gave Zyren the floor, not because they wanted to, because they had no choice. He had spoken with such certainty in the trial of names that even the legacy auditors, creatures bred to dismiss emotion as irrelevant, had paused. And when a child in a royal chamber silences a galaxy's worth of doctrine with a single sentence, the galaxy listens. If only to dissect him. He stood alone now, no Cole beside him, no queen at his back, just the full weight of the throne world, its laws, its judgment, and its eyes, so many eyes watching. He held a small data slate in his hand. He tapped it once, and a flickering projection appeared above him. Images, still and unremarkable, a piece of toast, a bent fork, a blanket folded sloppily on a too-small bed. Cole's boots, side by side near the door, a cup of something warm held in two hands. The audience murmured. "What is this?" one elder demanded. Zyren looked up. "Memories. These are not significant." "When? To you," Zyren said. "But they're everything I saw." He tapped again. The image shifted. Cole's voice, half laughing, muffled through the recording. "All right, kiddo. If I catch you sneaking cookies again, I'm upgrading you to mop duty." Laughter. Real, unfiltered, from Zyren himself. The boy turned to the court. "That was the first time someone joked with me." Another image, a scraped knee. Cole kneeling, blowing on it, wrapping it in a strip of cloth. No hovering drones, no royal healers. Just hands, just presence. I was clumsy. He didn't shame me. He just helped. Another, a piece of chalk. Zyren had drawn stars on a stone floor. Cole had joined him, adding stick figures beside them, two figures standing beneath the same constellation. "No one ever drew with me before," Zyren said. The court was dead silent. "I know he's not of the blood. I know he doesn't belong to the throne. But when I'm scared, I don't call for my title. I call for him." He looked toward his mother. "And he always comes." The queen's face had not moved, but her knuckles were white against the arm of her seat. A chancellor tried to interrupt. "The role of fatherhood cannot be dictated by sentiment. It is a structure." "No," Zyren cut in. "It's not." He stepped forward, voice rising, not in defiance, but urgency. "It's not about blood or structure. It's about who shows up when you're crying at the edge of the universe. It's about whose arms you run to when you don't understand why your own chest hurts." He turned slowly, letting his words fall over every tear of judgment. "I didn't choose him because he had a crown. I chose him because he knelt when I was on the floor, because he taught me that the stars don't have to be cold, that family can be found." And for the first time in the chamber's history, no one corrected the prince, because what he said was true. The queen did not summon Cole. She simply appeared. No procession, no guards, no warning. One moment his quarters were still, lit by the low violet glow of Solaris's dusk. The next, she was standing inside, her crown absent, her expression unreadable. Cole rose from the edge of the bed, where he'd been sorting through a pile of drawings Zyren had left him. Stars, ships, stick figures labeled in blocky handwriting. One said M.E., another said M.O.M., and the last, in bold letters with two hearts above it, read Earth Dad. He moved instinctively, standing straighter. "Your Majesty," she said nothing at first, just looked at the drawings. then at him, then down at her hands. "I was raised by 3 women," she said finally. "2 aunts, and a planetary steward. I was taught how to build empires. Not this." Cole didn't speak. "I used to think that was power," she continued, "to never need comfort, to rise above needing anything. But now my son clings to a man with calloused hands and soft stories, and I wonder." She trailed off. Cole stepped forward, careful. "You think you failed him." The words cut sharper than she expected. She flinched but didn't deny it. "I gave him everything," she said. "Except space to be small," Cole replied. "To fall apart, to be held." Her eyes flashed not with anger, with something deeper. Guilt. Recognition. "I didn't know how," she admitted. "No one does at first," Cole said softly. "But you don't have to know. You just have to stay." She turned away, hands clasped behind her back, a posture too rigid to be anything but defense. "And if he loves you more?" Cole blinked. The honesty of the question struck him harder than any royal decree. He moved carefully, stood beside her, but not too close. "It's not a competition," he said. "It's a language." She looked at him. "Love," he said, "isn't something you win. It's something you speak. In meals, in minutes, in waiting outside a door, even if you're not sure he wants to open it. You speak it with presence. You speak it with staying." The Queen's gaze dropped. She studied the edge of one of Zyren's drawings. A crooked circle labeled home. "I've spoken in laws my whole life," she whispered. "I don't know this language." Cole offered the drawing. "He already understands you're trying." She took it, just held it there, in fingers that had once signed planetary annexations, now trembling under the weight of a child's crayon stars. "He won't stop loving you," Cole said gently. "He just finally believes someone else can love him too." She exhaled, slow, shaky. It wasn't surrender. It was something braver. She looked up, and this time her eyes were not the Queen's. They were his mother's. "Then I will learn," she said, not as a monarch, not as a ruler, as a woman who was finally choosing to hold on. Zyren sat cross-legged on the floor, tongue poking slightly from the corner of his mouth as he concentrated. The court was silent, not because anyone had commanded it, but because no one knew what to say. The Queen had allowed this, declared it. Let the child show us what matters, in his way. And so, the boy had asked for paper, not a datapad, not a hollow grid, just paper, thick and imperfect and real. He drew with old earth markers that Cole had brought in his satchel. Most of the nobles had never even seen ink that smeared. It felt unruly, primitive. Zyren loved it. At last, he stood and held the drawing high. "This," he said, "is my family." The projection behind him cast the picture into the air, larger than life. It was crude, a child's hand at work, but it was clear. On the left, a crystalline throne beneath a cold Sunday. A tall figure stood alone, crowned, beautiful, distant. "Mom," the label read. On the right, a small, dented earth truck. A figure beside it, scruffy, smiling, arms wide open. Earth, Dad, and between them, Zyren himself. Arms outstretched, smiling in both directions. A line drawn from each hand to the people he loved. Everyone stared, not at the artistry, not at the childish shapes, but at what it showed. A child who had built his world from both halves. Zyren looked to the Queen. "You don't have to be the same as him. You don't even have to like the same things. You just have to stay." She swallowed hard, nodding once. Then he turned to the court. "You all want to know who gets to be called father. But I already know. It's the person who holds your hand when you're scared, who stays when it's quiet, who kneels so you don't have to feel small." He held up the marker in his hand. "Titles don't fit on a page like that, but love does." Cole watched from the side of the chamber. He didn't move, didn't wave, just stood still with a softness in his chest he hadn't known a man like him could feel. He'd been a mechanic, a husband who failed, a man who barely scraped through most of his own days. And now, somehow, he was the reason a little boy could smile without flinching. The Queen stepped forward. She took the drawing with both hands, not like a relic, like a promise. "This court," she said slowly, voice edged with something raw and unfiltered, has long defined family by blood and bond. But perhaps it is time we remember that being chosen is the oldest covenant of all. She handed the drawing to the archivist. Enter it into record. But, Your Majesty, the scribe stammered, it's crayon. She looked him dead in the eye. It's truth. The queen stood before the ancient dais, the crown in her hands, not on her head, not hovering with gravity-bound grace as it had for centuries. She held it bare-palmed, like something fragile, like something earned. The tribunal had gathered once more ministers, auditors, off-world dignitaries who had flown through star lanes to witness what had been whispered across the system. The heir of Solaris had broken protocol with a crayon. They expected damage control, a royal correction, a reassertion of lineage. Instead, they watched as the queen did the unthinkable. She set the crown on the table between two chairs. On one side sat Cole, shoulders squared, eyes cautious, not out of fear but out of reverence, as if he were stepping too close to a galaxy that wasn't meant for him. On the other side sat Zyron, legs swinging slightly above the floor, hands folded in his lap, calm, certain. He had nothing to prove. This symbol, the queen said, gesturing to the crown, has always demanded singularity. One line, one blood, one truth. She paused. But my son lives in two truths now, not by rebellion, by need, by love. And if this crown cannot make space for that, then it is no longer fit to sit atop anyone's head. Murmurs rose, disbelieving. Your Majesty, tradition is not an excuse, she said, sharp enough to silence them. Zyron looked up. Do I have to choose? The queen turned to him and knelt. No, she said. You never should have had to. She reached for the crown, but not to wear it. Instead, she removed a single piece, a small central shard of crystal, once symbolic of direct bloodline authority. She walked to Cole and offered it. He didn't take it at first. I didn't come for this. You didn't, she said, and that's why you deserve it. He looked to Zyron. The boy nodded, smiling. So Cole accepted. The crystal was warm in his palm, lighter than he expected, but it carried weight just the same. The court may record this day as precedent, the queen declared, not of transfer, but of addition. My son may call two fathers, one by legacy, one by presence. She turned to face the stunned assembly. This is not the erosion of power, it is its evolution. A few nobles stood to protest, but one by one, others remained seated, watching, listening, learning. Because the boy had not divided his love, he had expanded it. Zyron rose from his chair and stood between them, one hand in his mother's, the other in Cole's. He didn't need permission. He had already chosen. And for the first time the court bowed not out of tradition, but respect. One crown, two fathers, a boy who finally didn't have to break himself in half to be whole. They gave Cole no title, no medallion, no place in the lineage archives. And that was exactly right. He didn't belong on the royal charts or between the sacred seals of Solaris history. He belonged exactly where Zyren kept reaching for him on the bench beside the boy's study pod, in the garden when thunder shook the upper atmosphere, outside the door when nightmares clung like gravity. He stayed. The palace adjusted slowly, awkwardly. Ministers learned to nod when Cole passed. Guards stopped sneering. Tutors corrected their language. When your father became when one of your fathers. Some resisted. Let them. Resistance doesn't halt time, it only bruises the people trying to hold it still. The queen watched it all from her high terrace. Her crown no longer glowed with ancient command, but shimmered faintly when Zyron smiled. That was enough. She never called Cole by any official designation, but sometimes, after meetings, she would pass him and pause not to instruct but to ask, "What did he draw today?" And Cole would answer, quietly, without claiming more than he'd been given. In the city below, murals began to appear. One showed the air between two stars, his hands touching both. Another showed a squeegee, resting beside a crown, no signature, no fanfare, just understanding left in color. And in the royal courtyard, Zyren planted a tree. It was crooked and stubby, taken from an earth seed Cole had long forgotten was in his coat pocket. The boy knelt in the soil himself, his robe muddied, his fingers sticky, and said, "Things grow better when they know they're not alone." No one corrected him. The Queen stood beside him that day, her hand resting on his shoulder. She didn't speak, but she didn't leave either. The roots of her silence had changed. Cole brought a chair from the lower halls. Not a throne, not carved in platinum, just a seat, wood and metal, worn and real. He placed it beside the tree. "I thought it could be ours," he said to Zyren, "when you want to be outside and not all prince-like." Zyren had grinned, teeth crooked, proud. They sat there often, at dusk, at dawn, between lessons. No court, no rules, just a father and a son watching a tree that didn't care about protocol. It only cared about sun and water and time. One evening, as the galaxy lit its necklace of stars, Zyren leaned into Cole's side and whispered, "Do you think he would have come back, the other one?" Cole didn't lie. "No." Zyren was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I'm glad you did." Cole didn't reply. He just reached down, curled his fingers around Zyren's, and squeezed once. Not a speech, not a promise, just presence. And across the courtyard, the Queen watched from her balcony, not as ruler, not as judge, but as mother. And for the first time in her long reign, she smiled, not because she was victorious, but because her son was no longer alone at the end of the galaxy.